Jiro was an ugly fatso who was bullied because of his disgusting face, until one day, when he wakes up as the hottest beauty and takes revenge on everyone who mocked him. Jiro awakens one day to answer the delivery man at the door, only to find out that he has transformed into a beautiful girl. 10 hours ago, he was a fat, unattractive man, working part-time at an internet cafe. When a group of girls see his pig face, one of them is reminded of her terrible blind date, and they decide to take their business elsewhere. Jiro tries to tell his coworker to do some work around the store, but he ignores him. Their boss exits the office, and Jiro's coworker immediately starts buttering up to him. When Jiro tries to tell their boss about his coworker's laziness, Jiro is dragged away to the bathroom, where he is threatened into silence. Jiro is already used to people threatening him, and he doesn't even react. The light inside is gone, but he still works. When their boss discovers that they are 20,001 short, Jiro's coworker blames him. To make matters worse, while bringing a customer their order, Jiro accidentally bumps into them and spills food and drink all over them and on the floor. Jiro takes the blame for the missing 20,001, which is taken out of his next paycheck, in addition to being forced to pay for the customer's dry cleaning. Jiro grows increasingly bitter and resentful. He returns home, bitter about the day's events, and he vents out his frustrations in a video game while imagining the faces of the people who bullied him that day, including a scene of his coworker pocketing the money in the till. At least in the video game world, he's immortal. Unfortunately, Jiro dies, and he angrily blames his teammates. He's a true-blooded online gamer. Exhausted, he slumps into bed and falls asleep. However, during the night, he starts sweating profusely, and he struggles to have a restful sleep. The next morning, while responding to the hurried knocks of a delivery man, Jiro is shocked by his new appearance, and damn does he look good. Jiro screams. Jiro examines her body closer, and as she expected, it's a dynamite body. Hot damn. Predictably, Jiro does the one thing that any guy would do if they turned into a girl: feel himself up. However, her main issue is now she doesn't have any underclothes to buy. She makes the worst possible decision and asks the internet for advice. She enters a public chat room and tells them that she's turned into a girl, where she can get her hands on the underclothes. Everyone in the chat room is dismissive of her, and one of them recommends that she check herself into a mental hospital. However, one of them is more open-minded. They send Jiro a private message and ask what her sizes is. All Jiro knows is that her knockers are real, and they're spectacular. She tries sending a few photos to her mysterious benefactor, but they tell her to cut it out and look up how to measure herself on the internet. Jiro measures herself at 70G, and her benefactor is in disbelief. Due to Jiro's size, she is instructed to visit a specific store that may be able to accommodate her. However, with no clothes available to her, she is forced to put on a limited edition cosplay outfit. This obviously attracts unwanted stares. Jiro heads to and nervously enters the women's store, where she is overwhelmed by how expensive everything is. When an attendant asks her what her size is, she loudly declares that it's 70G. Nearby customers are astonished, and a relationship is put in jeopardy. That's how massive she is. She tries fitting the underclothes in a changing room, but has difficulty putting it on. When the attendant checks on him, she instinctively becomes embarrassed and screams. After purchasing the underclothes she needs, she receives a text from her benefactor, revealing that she is being tracked. Not long after, she spots a boy being bullied by two older men. Remembering his own bullied past, she follows them into an alley, forgetting that she is no longer the 400-pound monster she was before. Jiro is harassed instead, but she is saved when a passerby starts calling the attention of the police, forcing the men to escape. The young boy thanks him and runs off. As Jiro slumps against the wall, the passerby approaches her and introduces herself as Shika, the person who messaged him earlier. After Shika buys Jiro some new clothes to accentuate her new dynamite body, they head out for lunch together. Shika is appalled by Jiro's lack of table manners and sloppiness that belies her otherwise refined, princess-like appearance. Shika even has to remind her to close her legs while sitting down. She reminds Jiro that she is now a girl, and she should act as such. Shika offers to be Jiro's friend, and they go around shopping together. However, Shika is exasperated by Jiro's insistence on maintaining her old hobbies. Shika goodbye to anime figures and gunpla building. Now it's chic cafes and arts and crafts. Shika is horrified by the fact that Jiro has not showered in over a week, prompting a lecture on proper hygiene, poise, and style. Shika definitely has her work cut out for her. and she drags Jiro along so they can buy clothes to turn her into a proper girl. Afterwards, they visit a fortune teller who expresses pity for Jiro's hardships, but congratulates her on her new change. Shika requests a fortune for her love life, but the fortune teller warns her not to pursue the current guy she's after, prompting Shika to call her a hack. As Shika storms off, the fortune teller senses that Jiro appears to be wearing someone else's clothes, and she warns her to find himself again, lest misfortune befall her. When Jiro exits the tent, Shika is nowhere to be found. Shika goes off to see Kenja, her love interest, and offers to make him tofu hot pot, but he turns her down, citing that he is too tired. Shika somberly plays with Kenja's dog, while telling herself that things will work out. While Jiro reflects on what the fortune teller told her, Shika suddenly visits him, carrying with her a plastic bag filled with alcohol. Jiro asks her how she found her house, and she replies that it was no big deal. Silly Jiro. All girls are trained FBI trackers. Shika apologizes for suddenly leaving her earlier, but she asks him, as a guy, what she thinks of her. She readily replies that she is cute, like a younger sister. This irritates Shika, as this is what her older brother Kenja said as well. Shika spends the night while Jiro watches over her. After a whole night of gaming, Jiro wakes up and is delighted to see that Shika has cooked her some porridge before she left. With her stomach full, she can now deal with the more pressing concern of how she turned into a woman. However, an even more pressing concern comes up: money. Her boss calls her and asks why she hasn't gone to work in 2 days. While on the phone, Jiro pretends to be her own female cousin. Jiro curses the fact that she had to use his hard-earned money to buy clothes when she could have spent it on more useful things, like his bills or anime figures. Jiro heads to the internet cafe to pick up her paycheck while posing as Jiro's cousin. Both his boss and co-worker are visibly nervous and over-accommodating when talking to him, as if they've never seen another woman in their lives before. Little do they know that they're simping for Jiro. When her co-worker accidentally spills coffee on her, Jiro is forced to go to the bathroom to clean up, where she realizes that the reason they're acting so strange is because she's attractive. Jiro puts her new good looks to good use. She drops a hairpin into a urinal and seduces her co-worker into retrieving it for her. Her boss then invites her to work part-time at the cafe, but when Shika calls, asking her to work part-time at a convenience store, she accepts Shika's offer instead. Before she leaves, she reveals that her co-worker is the reason why the store is missing money. Meanwhile, a doctor named Kenja meets with his senior, Soma. They then go with Soma's girlfriend, Minnie, to the convenience store. Soma enters by himself, and Jiro recognizes him as part of the couple with whom he ran into trouble a few days earlier. Jiro barely manages to contain her anger as she rudely serves him. She also recalls a troubled past with Soma and swears to have her revenge. Soma wonders how that girl from the convenience store knows his name, while Jiro is wide awake thinking of the past. Decades earlier, Jiro was a promising track star and the pride of his high school. One day, Soma observes Jiro practicing on the track field, which encourages him to try harder in his studies. Jiro's teammates, jealous of his success and frustrated at constantly being compared to him, viciously bully him. When one of the bullies tries to punch Soma in the face, Soma raises his hand and explains that he doesn't condone violence. Too bad, the bully does. After being beaten up together, Jiro and Soma become close friends. One day, Jiro notices that Soma's hand is all bandaged up, though he conceals where he got it from. Later, bullies interrogate Jiro for Soma's location, revealing that Soma punched one of them in the face. Jiro refuses to give him up, which means he is beaten up. Jiro sees Soma happen upon them again, but he does nothing but look at him before leaving. The bullies strike Jiro in the legs, breaking one of them and ruining his track and field career. For this, he swears revenge on the one person he thought was his friend. After seeing him again at work, Jiro confides in Shika, explaining that she was once a promising athlete and was betrayed by her friend when it mattered most. Shika is furious. When Jiro laments that she feels powerless to do anything to retaliate, Shika encourages her to be petty, pointing out that she is now a brand new person. That night, a vengeful Jiro plots revenge against Soma, whom she thinks is having the time of his life when he so easily ruined hers. She blames Soma for his current woes, but realizes that she isn't Jiro anymore. She is a beauty. Jiro has the weapons and tools she needs, so she decides to try and seduce Soma, then dump him immediately afterwards to teach him the meaning of betrayal. However, upon seeing him the next day, Jiro panics and is unable to talk to him normally. Jiro seeks out Shika's help, a self-proclaimed expert on seducing men, but she clarifies later that she's just an expert on using Google. I told you all women were FBI agents. However, Shika's advice leads to disastrous results. First, she tells Jiro to flaunt her looks by applying makeup, but they end up applying way too much, making Jiro look like she's in drag. When Soma sees her the next day, he is turned off. Next, Soma has Jiro act cute and vulnerable, since all men seem to like submissive girls. However, this backfires, as Jiro goes too far and wears a cat outfit. Confused that none of her tactics are working, Shika has Jiro use her last resort, to try and act sexy. Shika asks her if she has any flash drives to save some of the reference photos, so Jiro reluctantly hands her some anime figurines, which are actually USB sticks in disguise. The next day, Jiro dresses up in a flashy, revealing, low-cut dress, but it fails to work on Soma. However, it ends up attracting two random men in the store, who accuse her of dressing up to attract men like them. Fortunately, Soma comes to her rescue by pretending that they are dating, which successfully shoos the two men away. The experience causes Soma to become infatuated with her. Later, when Soma sees Jiro working hard, he recalls the hard-working Jiro he knew in high school. When he returns home, it is revealed that he is actually siblings with Shika, the very girl who's trying to help Jiro ruin him. That night, Jiro laments his failed attempts at revenge, but after remembering the time he spent with Shika, he realizes that he's having a lot of fun as a girl. That night, Jiro has a dream involving a hectic chase, a nurse, a man, and a necklace. She wakes up in a cold sweat, but as she looks out the balcony, she spots the same necklace from her dreams. To Jiro's astonishment, Soma asks her out to dinner, all the while ignoring calls from his girlfriend, Minnie. Jiro agrees to go out with him, which turns Soma into a cheater. I don't care how good he looks. The pair drink together, and Soma introduces himself as a resident of a local hospital, all while ignoring Minnie's calls. When Jiro overhears him talking to another man Soma considers his brother, Jiro instead plots to seduce him and drive a wedge between them. When Soma calls Jiro a light drinker, Jiro takes this personally, and she orders another round of beer. Later, Jiro asks him if he has any other friends, but as he talks about him, Jiro passes out. Meanwhile, Minnie tries in vain to get a hold of Soma, and she eventually learns why he isn't picking up when she and her friends spot him carrying Jiro. Soma considers bringing Jiro to a love hotel, but when she complains that she's about to throw up, he carries her to the park instead. Soma brings Jiro some water to help her sober up, while a furious Minnie storms off. Soma talks about a friend he had in high school, Jiro, but notices that Jiro has fallen asleep again. As he looks at her face, he wonders when the last time was when he was able to talk with someone like this, over drinks. Jiro wakes up but complains that she has to pee. She accidentally goes into the men's restroom instead, and when Soma goes searching for her, a janitor drives him away. Jiro passes out on the toilet, and she once again has a dream about the necklace. The body of the girl she is possessing is Junko, who uncovers a conspiracy using the USB inside the necklace. Junko discovers audio evidence about a certain medical director being killed. A man walks in, and when he realizes that Junko knows the truth, he covers her mouth. Jiro awakens the next morning with no recollection of the previous night. She panics for a while, fearing that she exposed who she really was to Soma, but finds no evidence of foul play. However, the uncertainty is killing him. He receives a call from Shika, inviting him out to a salon and offering to buy her dinner. Free food? That's all you had to Shika. Jiro, remembering the dream from last night, checks the necklace USB, and to her horror, she finds the exact same audio recording of a certain hospital director's death. Jiro accompanies Shika to the salon, and she undergoes a glamorous makeover. Stunning Jiro. I don't blame her. Short hair, tomboy supremacy. Over lunch, Shika explains that she's going on a date with a guy she's had her eye on for a while, Kenja. Shika goes on to explain that, as a child, her family was wealthy. However, her father, a medical director, took his own life after being involved in a scandal. She and her brother were taken in by the next director, and they reside in his basement to this day. This story seems all too familiar to Jiro. Meanwhile, Minnie visits Soma at the hospital, demanding an explanation as to why he wasn't returning her calls the night before, and she asks who he was with. Not wanting to explain any further, Soma breaks up with her on the spot. When Kenja shows up, a frustrated Minnie leaves, but swears that this isn't over. Kenja scolds Soma for breaking up with Minnie after he went through all the trouble to set them up. When When Soma reveals he was with a girl the previous night, Kenja asks for a photo, threatening to beat him up if she isn't cuter than Minnie. As the two do their rotations, their doctor smells alcohol and reminds them not to drink while they're in their training period. A female nurse, Jiro, admits that she was celebrating her 100th day anniversary with her boyfriend the previous night. The doctor rolls his eyes and points out that this was her 13th time having a 100-day anniversary. As they visit some comatose patients, Soma notices someone familiar in one of the hospital beds. It's Jiro's real body. Jiro experiences another nightmare about the man behind the death of the previous hospital director. In her dream, as Junko struggles with her attacker, she manages to badly injure him before escaping with the USB containing evidence of his crimes. However, the man, revealed to be Kenja, catches up to her and presumably murders her. When Jiro wakes up, she finds a collapsed Shika next to her. Deeply affected by the nightmare, Jiro listens to the voice recordings again, and she comes to understand two things: that the deputy director was killed by this mysterious man, and that the body he is controlling is that of Junko, a nurse at the hospital who was killed for uncovering evidence of the murder. She receives a text from Soma, who invites her out to dinner. Jiro forgets about the murder mystery for a second, and remembers that she's supposed to take revenge on Soma. When Kenja notices Soma getting dressed up, Soma invites him to come along so he can introduce her. Meanwhile, Minnie visits Jiro while she is working. She tricks her into opening a fizzy can of beer and tries to bully her into not seeing Soma again. However, when Soma arrives to pick Jiro up, he immediately grasps the situation. He covers Jiro with his jacket and drags Minnie outside, telling her that he doesn't want to see her again. Hurt, Minnie smacks him before leaving. As Soma and Jiro head out for dinner, Kenja arrives as well. Jiro recognizes him as the killer from her dreams, and she faints. She regains consciousness at the hospital, where Kenja is also visibly disturbed at seeing a dead person come back to life. Shika visits Jiro as well, and everyone realizes that they're all connected in one way or another. What a small world it is. Kenja recalls memories of the real Junko, a kind-hearted nurse. After a young boy dies of a terminal illness, Kenja does his best to comfort her. He then recalls their short-lived relationship and their final confrontation over a bridge. Back in the present, Kenja sweats profusely as he lays his eyes on someone who should be, by all means, dead. Jiro, accompanied by Shika and Soma, returns home. When they arrive at her apartment, Soma chases her brother away. After an afternoon snack, Shika brags that Kenja asked her out on another date. While talking about him, Jiro is disturbed to learn that Kenja's father is the current director, further cementing the audio evidence that he is the killer. Jiro asks Shika to talk more about this incident, but she declines to elaborate. More importantly, she wonders what she should wear for her date. That night, Jiro's persistence pays off, and Shika explains her history with Kenja. Kenja was an old family friend, and it was him who first contacted them about the death of their father. She immediately rushed to the hospital, while Soma arrived late. Jiro's eyes widen when she learns the truth. On the day he was being beaten to a pulp, Soma received news that his father had suddenly passed away. Soma rushed to the hospital but saw Jiro being beaten up. He immediately notified the coach before leaving for the hospital again, but the coach was forced to attend to a call from the principal instead. The entire incident was a result of Soma punching one of Jiro's bullies in the face, prompting them to seek revenge. When Shika falls asleep, Jiro goes through the evidence on the USB again and discovers a photo of Shika and the previous director. She confirms several details. Shika's father was falsely accused of embezzling funds, and his death was made to look like he took his own life. The culprit behind the murder is Kenja, the current director's son. Jiro resolves to inform Shika about all the details in the morning and to discover the truth together. The next morning, Jiro discovers that Shika has prepared him some food out of concern for her health. However, to her horror, she took the necklace USB with her on her date with Kenja. Kenja glances at the USB necklace around Shika's neck. Jackpot. Kenja, recognizing the necklace, plots to snatch it away from her. He invites Shika to a fireworks show at Gwacheon, and she excitedly agrees. Meanwhile, panicked Jiro frantically tries to contact both her and Soma, but neither answer their phones. Shika sets her phone on silent, while Soma is busy doing rounds at the hospital. While on the road to the fireworks show, Kenja drugs Shika with the one thing she wouldn't suspect was drugged, a can of beer. Shika passes out, and Kenja drives her to the old ward of the hospital. He carries her inside, and when Shika comes to, she realizes that they're in Director Han's, her father's, old office. She frantically asks him what they're doing here, but Kenja isn't interested in that. Kenja interrogates her regarding the necklace. When he learns it is from her friend, Jiro, he digs through her bag. He finds it amusing that she thought she was going to get lucky. He grabs her phone and tricks Jiro into going to their location. Kenja reveals his true nature to Shika, voicing his displeasure for her father, for all the trouble and suffocating traditions he put them through. Shika recalls how Kenja cared for him and her brother when her father passed away. She can hardly recognize him anymore. Jiro grabs a taxi and speeds to the hospital, and unbeknownst to her, a jealous Minnie follows her. When Jiro arrives at the old ward, she receives a text from Shika, explaining that Kenja will pick her up when she arrives. When she walks up to the old ward, Kenja claims that Shika is searching for an old keepsake of her father at his old office. Jiro enters the old ward with him, prompting an angry Minnie to call Soma to inform him that Jiro is cheating on him. Once inside, Jiro sees Shika tied up, and he is hit on the head with a baseball bat. As her vision darkens, the last thing she sees is Kenja, ready to kill Shika. Kenja reveals the truth to Shika. Her father, Director Han, did not take his own life, but was killed by his hand. He explains that a decade ago, the area around the old ward was undergoing renovations. However, an ancient protected site was discovered, halting the construction and renovation. This mishap cost Kenja's and Shika's fathers a fortune in fees, but neither did anything to deal with the problem of the protected site. Kenja, with lofty ambitions of being the sole hospital owner, took matters into his own hands. The construction company offered to go ahead with the renovations anyway, and risk a lawsuit if Kenja agreed to kill a certain patient, the son of an affluent family. Kenja agreed, and the construction was ultimately carried out. The hospital was a resounding success, but Director Han found evidence of Kenja's crimes and threatened to hold a press conference to expose his misdeeds to the world. That's not exactly the best move. Why would you tell that to a murderer? Kenja killed Director Han and forged a death note. As he prepares to send Shika to her father, he wonders how Jiro, or rather Junko, survived being choked and thrown into a raging river. While he is distracted, Shika manages to struggle free and destroy his only lethal injection. He knocks her out, but is frustrated that he must prepare another lethal injection. For some reason, he kisses Jiro before leaving. Meanwhile, Soma wonders if the Jiro in bed is the same Jiro from high school. When he is instructed to pick up some glucose for the 4th, he is surprised to see Kenja there as well. When Soma asks what he's doing here on his day off, Kenja claims to have a cold, and he was just finding some medicine. Soma, oblivious to the stakes at hand, invites him out to drink with Jiro and Shika the following day, and he agrees. Kenja returns and ruins Jiro's attempts to contact help. He smashes the phone right in front of her, ruining both her hopes and her mobile plan. Kenja administers a lethal injection, hoping that he doesn't have to see Jiro's face again. As Jiro's time in Junko's body ends, his own body begins to show signs of life. Kenja brings Junko's body to the same bridge he dumped her over a few weeks beforehand. The truth of that fateful night is revealed. After Kenja disposed of Junko's body at a bridge, Jiro, who was at the same bridge minutes later to take his own life, sees it floating in the river. He falls into the river accidentally and resigns himself to his fate, but after remembering his troubled past, he decides to try and save Junko. He swims to the surface, brings Junko's body onto dry land, and attempts to revive her. That night, their lives are inexplicably linked by the hands of fate, which triggers his transformation later that night. Meanwhile, after being told to attend surgery the next day, Soma finally checks his cell phone to tell the others that the party's off. However, he discovers several missed calls from Jiro, including a voicemail from Minnie reporting Jiro's supposed infidelity. Curious, he tries dialing the number again. Shika regains consciousness, and when she sees the empty syringes on the table, she fears the worst has happened to Jiro. She receives a call from Soma and pleads for him to come and save her from Kenja. Soma thinks that Shika is just pranking him at first, and he doesn't take her very real cry for help seriously. When the call abruptly drops, he realizes that it could be the real deal. Kenja returns, snatching the phone away from Shika. He prepares another dose of the injection, and before he administers it to a helpless Shika, he tells her to say hi to her dad for him. As the contents of the syringe enter Shika's veins, Jiro awakens back into his old body. He's back in business. He runs out of the hospital room, bumping into Nurse Jiro on the way out. For some strange reason, he immediately runs out to search for Junko's body, but remembers that Shika has been left alone with Kenja, and he races back to the old ward. Jiro arms himself with a metal pipe, and he enters the old ward, just in time to see Kenja carrying Shika's body. Meanwhile, an oblivious and clueless Soma explores near the bridge, where he sees Junko's body. Kenja is initially confused to see Jiro, but quickly realizes that Jiro is aware of his crimes. He tries attacking him but severely overestimates his own athleticism, and Kenja easily restrains him. Kenja repeatedly slaps and interrogates Jiro, asking him how he knows about his illegal activities. When Jiro reveals that he knows the contents of the USB, Kenja drops the necklace on the floor and crushes it with the metal pipe. Jiro threatens to report him to the police, and Kenja invites him to try. He punches Jiro across the room, but Jiro meant what he said. Kenja is going to jail. Several hours earlier, while Jiro was on the way to the hospital, he stopped by the police department and dropped off the evidence of Kenja's crimes, which she had copied onto his trusty anime figure USB drives. Not long after, Jiro passes out from blood loss. Kenja brings Jiro and Shika to the same bridge from before, which is quickly becoming a popular body dumping ground. Meanwhile, the police finish analyzing Jiro's evidence, and they mobilize men to head to the hospital to apprehend Kenja. Kenja struggles to lift Jiro over the bridge railing, but at the last moment, Jiro manages to regain consciousness, and he breaks free. Kenja desperately tries to kick Jiro over the bridge, but Soma arrives, carrying with him Junko's body. A panicked Kenja realizes that his plans are falling apart. Junko managed to come back from the dead not once, but twice. He stares at Junko's face, which suddenly becomes a horrifying, twisted visage. Jiro flips Kenja over the fence, but tries not to let him fall so that he can pay for his crimes. When Kenja sees a ghostly apparition of Junko approaching him, he frantically tries to get away, causing Jiro to lose his grip, and Kenja falls into the river. Jiro jumps in after him to save him. Kenja opens his eyes and sees Junko's apparition giving him a kiss. When he regains consciousness, he sees that it was just Jiro giving him some mouth-to-mouth. Jiro successfully drags Kenja back to shore, just in time for the police to arrive. While Shika is rushed to the hospital, the police take Kenja into custody. Soma thanks Jiro for his help. Kenja would have gotten away with it if it weren't for these meddling young adults. The two reconcile and become friends again, and Jiro jokingly tells him not to ask him out on a date. They visit Shika in the hospital, and when she awakens, she is shocked to see Jiro's true appearance. They have some beer together at Jiro's apartment, and Shika agonizes over visiting a gross man's apartment this entire time. She slaps Jiro on the back and demands to have her friend Jiro back. Don't worry, they're still good friends.